Hi everyone, my name is Roy and I'm a land investor who specializes in selling vacant land on owner financing. And what I have come across recently is a lot of my fellow land investors have reached out and have asked me if I know of a good resource or a video where they can learn how to sell their vacant land on terms as well. And after a thorough search on YouTube, I didn't really find anything that can possibly help them, help sell the land on terms and teach them. So, in response to that, I have created this video to help land investors like yourself to learn it and get behind the thought process of what it takes to really sell your land on terms. So I have summarized the entire process into five simple steps. So in five steps that I'm about to show you, you'll be able to comprehend, you'll be able to understand how to sell your vacant land with owner financing. Alrighty, so let's get to it. Alrighty, so in the very beginning, you have to ask yourself, what are your intention with creating this note or selling your property on terms, right? It pretty much means the same thing, selling your property on terms or creating the note. It's the same thing. Is your goal to keep the note for cash flow, or is the your goal to sell the note immediately after you originate it to a note buyer, right? The reason why this is an important question, because the answer to this question will help us structure the note properly from the beginning, right? So this is why I put this here. Um, Moving forward, I'm going to assume that my audience watching this video is going to want to sell the note immediately for the capital. So moving forward, I'm going to proceed with that context, right? So um, every direction, the way it's being explained here, will be for a successful turnaround when it comes to selling the note. However, if your intention is still to keep the note for the cash flow and build a nice portfolio of notes, this video and this presentation will still be very helpful for you, because it still goes over the thought process of creating this note and what we're looking for and what to look for, right? So I think either way it's going to be extremely valuable for you, but this is going to be more directed for the investor who wants to sell their property on terms and to turn around and quickly sell the note so they can get their capital back. So I just want to set the tone now moving forward. So let's jump to it. All right. So step one. So when you're originating your note, right, when you're selling your property on terms, you have to think of your end note buyer, right? You have to know what they're looking for in the back end, right? So you want to structure it up front correctly so it's easier for you to sell on the back end. Hope that makes sense. So after, if you start networking and talking to note buyers, you'll see that each note buyer has their own requirements, right? Some note buyers require a minimum of a 10% down payment. Some require a minimum of a 20% down payment, from the buyer up front. Some have credit score requirements. Some have debt to income ratio requirements. So you'll find that every note buyer is different. A lot of times they are. They're looking for different things. They all have, some of them are comfortable with more risk. Some of them aren't. So, but you'll find very quickly that for each note buyer, right, whether they're a mom and pop note buyer or whether they're a professional note buyer who buys notes for a living, they all care about the yield, right? They all care about how much money they're going to make on, when they buy your note. So what is a yield, right? A yield is just pretty much just the annualized return that note buyer is going to make when they purchase your note. So when we know what yield our note buyers are wanting up front prior to structuring our owner finance deal, we know how to price it correctly, right? This is important. This is important because if you price it too low, you'll find out in just a minute what I'm going to explain. You're going to cost yourself some money. So we don't want that. We want to maximize. We want to make the most money possible. Right? This is why we're doing this. So I'm gonna go into depth behind this thought process. So the what I right now, at the time of me recording this video, the ongoing accepted yield for a newly owner finance land note with no seasoning, and all that seasoning means is just payment history. So no payment history is about a 20% yield. So this means that the note buyer, most note buyers out there now will pay for 20%, will want a 20% yield on the note when they buy it from you, right? So this is important to know because this lets us know exactly how to price it from the get-go. And you'll see it in just a second. Uh, how do we calculate the yield, right? That's a great question. It's crucial to know, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and I'm going to show you the tools to do it with. So let's go over here. Alrighty, so we have two calculators that will help us determine the yield. First, we're going to start off with the mortgage calculator. By the way, I'm going to include links to both of these calculators in the description below. You can use it for your business, knock yourself out, play with the numbers. These calculators have made me a lot of money, and I hope they make you a lot of money too. So I'm just going to put in some numbers here. I'm just going to pretend that I'm originating a note or selling a property on terms. Again, they mean the same thing with these numbers. So let's just say I'm selling a property for $55,000. I'm asking for a $5,000 down payment. The loan amount or the note, that's the same thing. Loan amount or the note is for $50,000. The interest rate that I'm gonna charge is always a minimum of 12. The loan term, I usually do for a 10-year term. So if we put in these numbers, right, $55,000 purchase price, $5,000 down, this creates a note of $50,000. The rate we're going to charge is 12. The loan term is 10. All these numbers right here, we can just zero them out. They're irrelevant for this example. And then what we'll do is you hit calculate, and then you'll see that the payment amount or the principal and interest monthly payment amount to us as the note creator is $717.35 from the buyer. So that's what they owe us every month for the next 10 years. So in order for us to calculate the yield, we have to copy this number, and now we hop over to the mortgage yield calculator. So we'll just start from bottom to top. So the payment amount, we'll put the payment amount, I already did, but you would put the payment amount here. The number of payments per year, we would put 12, right? So it's one payment a month, 12 months a year, and that's how we come up with 12. And the number of payments left. So if we intend to sell the note right away, after we create it, remember I said a 10-year term back here. So 10-year term equals to 120 months, and it's one payment per month. So that's how I come up with 120. And then finally, let me take that number off, the amount offered for the loan. This is the number we're going to play with to determine the yield here. So I want to show something to you guys. So if someone was to offer us $50,000 for our note, and remember our note's face value is $50,000 as well. We hit compute. You'll notice that the yield to that note buyer is almost 12%. What was the interest rate that we charged on our note that we just created? Also 12. So I just want to show you this, that if someone offered us a $50,000 purchase price for our note that's also worth $50,000 face value, that note buyer will get 12% on their money. Pretty much is what this is telling us. But remember, as I said in the a few minutes ago, we do not need a 12% yield. We need to calculate for a 20% yield because we want to sell the note immediately after we create it, right? So we're going to have to play with this number. So let's say we put 45,000. If you notice here, this is still not good enough. You know, we're right at a 15% yield. So we will have trouble selling this note if we listed it on the secondary market for this amount. We will have trouble. So we have to go lower. So we do 40,000. You notice that that's better. Maybe you can find a note buyer, but you're gonna, probably not. Honestly, probably not at this yield, especially for a newly, seller finance note like that, like the one we created. We're gonna need to get lower. So let's just play with another number here. So we put 37,000. Boom, there we go. So what this tells us here is that we are confident that we can sell this note that we just created, $50,000 worth, immediately turn it around and sell it for $37,000 to a note buyer. So this is the amount that we know we can get for it up front. So this is what I mean by step one, think of your note buyer. This is what I mean. Think of your note buyer up front by calculating the yield, right? So, and this is important because if we know we're going to discount the note in the back end, then we're going to need to increase the price on the front end, right? So we up the price a little bit. So let's say instead of this note for 55,000, let's just say we wanted 59.9. And let's just say we just decrease it to that. Notice the payment went up, $789, right? And this is the same property. We just are selling it for more because we know we're going to discount it in the back end. So if we go back and we calculate the new payment amount, if you notice, for us to get to a 20% yield, now we can discount it less, right? You're discounting the same amount because you technically raised the price, but you're going to walk away with more money at the end, right? So that's still actually 21. So no, there we go. 40 grand. So now instead of selling the property or selling the note at 37,000, if we increase the price on the front end, instead of making 37 grand on the back end, we'll make 40,000 on the back end. I hope that makes sense. So again, the point of step one is think of your note buyer. Think of the yield up front. Price your property based on your note buyer's preference and yield. And right now, your note buyer's preference yield is going to be 20%. So this is hopefully a helpful example for you guys and how to do this step. Alrighty, step two. Advertise your property, right? So now that we know that we need to sell our note on the back end at a 20% yield, we know what to price our property at up front. We begin to market it. Now, I'm not going to go into depth about marketing strategies. I'm sure you guys have it down. I just listed a few that work for me. You can market it on Facebook Marketplace. You can market it on Craigslist, MLSland.com. Just market it and make sure when you market your property, you put in the description or maybe in the title too, owner finance available or display your terms. Now, I'm going to show you an example of a property I have currently listed, of the description of how I advertise it, so that people know that, hey, I'm offering owner financing. So go for it. So let me show you. Actually, I should have had this up before, but no worries. Let me. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, if you see, this is a property that I have listed on Craigslist, right? In the title, I put owner finance. If you go down, again, I emphasize owner finance. And at the very bottom, I include the owner finance terms, right? So this is clear as day. If you get an interested prospect, they'll like there's no denying it. They'll know that you are offering owner financing. So this is step two, right? I go into very detailed description. I list the terms online. So by the time that they're reaching out to me, right, whether they call me or whether they message me, here I want to show you. There we go. They know how much down payment they're gonna need. They know they're not gonna pay any closing costs. They know their rate. They know what the term is. They know that they can pay me off sooner if they wanted to, and most importantly, they know what they're gonna pay a month. Here, let me do that here. You can see there their monthly payment is $682. So this, it's great because once you get an interested buyer, that they know it immediately. They know a lot of the terms. So now it's just a matter of when they contact you, it's just a matter of steering them, right, closing them. But this is what I mean by price and advertise. So there you go. Let's go on to the next step. Okay, so once you start advertising your deal, and you advertise that owner financing available, you'll get leads and work them all. Don't discriminate on leads, right? You just never know who's gonna buy. So, you know, you might get some leads that may ask you, not pretty intelligent questions. It's fine. Still treat them with respect. Still be nice to them. Uh, you just never know, right? It's always just better to be nice to every lead that you get because you just never know who's going to buy. And, it's just no point of being rude to a potential lead, right? They're contacting you and they want to potentially buy your property. So anyway, when eventually you will get a serious buyer, a serious lead. And the way I recommend that you pitch it, right, is you tell them up front, look, listen, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, you can pay, at least 50% of the down payment up front as a deposit, right? And this does get credited towards your down payment. It's in your best interest to collect this money directly. You keep it, right? But I know some of you guys are selling property in a different state than you're in, or even sometimes you'll get a buyer who just doesn't trust you, right? So the next best thing, right? The next best thing is to just have them pay the deposit directly to the title company, right? That's the next best thing. But you want to collect at least 50% of the down payment up front, because if you collect a smaller amount and they get cold feet down the end, you wasted all this time. And with 50%, at least half of the down payment up front, they have more skin in the game, and maybe they'll think twice about walking away from the deal after you've already spent a week or 2 weeks with them. Think about it. You're rejecting other potential buyers because you have a buyer already, so they're costing you money if they walk away. So you want to get as much as money as possible up front. I say no less than 50%. I personally never get less than 50%. I always prefer 50%, and I have always collected the down payment directly. So I market in my own backyard, pretty much in my own market, and I live in my own market too. So I have the ability to meet my buyers in person. I understand if you don't, that's fine. Adjust, right? It just adjust, but that would be what I suggest you do. Second part of this step is to screen your buyer, right? So pull credit. I use mysmartmove.com. I'll include a link down in the description as well. It's $40. You can pay it or your buyer can pay it. I always pay it. I try to make it easy for my buyers. But what it does is it gives you a TransUnion report from your buyer, and it gives you their credit score. It gives you like all their credit history, right? What they owe, do they have judgments? It even goes to the extent of you can pull up an eviction record if you've seen the eviction. Also felonies and like charges, criminal charges will show up on there as well if you pay for that. Uh, for that with my smart move. So it's very informative. It gives you a great idea of who your buyer is. Now, if your buyer has bad credit, it's okay. Don't deny them, right? This is, like I said in the beginning. Remember, step one: think of your note buyer. We're collecting these items because we are anticipating of selling the note right away. So we want to let our note buyer know, hey, look, we did vet our borrower somewhat. Here's their credit report. This is why you want to do that. Aside from pulling credit, what I usually do, now you can get as extensive as you want. You're the investor, it's your property. I try to go for simplicity for my buyers, right? I try to make it as easy and seamless as possible, right? Because you want them to buy, we want them to close. So I just ask for a valid form of a photo ID, preferably a driver license, pay stubs. So I'll ask for a month of recent pay stubs and a utility bill confirming their mailing address. The reason why we ask for a utility bill is because if they default in the future, we may need to send them foreclosure letters and notices. And by having a utility bill, this confirms that they are giving us the correct mailing address, right? That's going to go on their closing doc. So this is what I recommend that you get. I know some investors can ask for 2 years of tax returns if you want to. You can ask for a lease agreement if you wanted to. I don't. I want to make it easy, but I at the very least will pull credit and ask for these basic income docs. Now, you will get self-employed borrowers or buyers. That's fine. They probably won't have pay stubs. So what you can do instead is you can ask for 3 to 6 months of bank statements, and you can count those deposits as income. Really. So that's the alternative, right? This is still just as good as pay stubs. In my opinion, and of several of my note buyers' opinion as well, for a self-employed borrower, right? So this is step 3: pre-screen your buyer, collect these docs, and you can collect them at the same time you get the down payment or the deposit, or you can collect it a day or two after. It's up to you really, but my advice is to do it immediately after you get the deposit, or the same time you get the deposit. Yeah. So move on to the next step. Close the deal, right? So get familiar with the key documents involved with this seller finance transaction. To keep things simple up front, you're really going to have 3 important documents, right? One is your deed. Second is either your deed of trust or mortgage. I'm in Texas, so we use deeds of trust. I know other states have mortgages, but they all pretty much, deed of trust or mortgage both secure your note, your loan with the property, right? So that shows, that gets recorded and lets everybody know that, hey, you have a lien or a note against this property, and this is crucial to have. So it's probably your most important doc out of the 3, although they're all important. And then finally, the promissory note. This is a promise to pay from your buyer. They sign it. Now, I've seen them not get notarized, but you can also notarize these. These do not get recorded, so the note doesn't get recorded, but your deed and your deed of trust or mortgage will be recorded with the county, right? So these are your 3 key documents that you want to make sure is drafted correctly. A title company can usually do this for a fee. If not, hire a local attorney to do it. They may charge you $500 to $600. Just spend the money and make sure it's done right. You don't want. This is crucial too for your note buyer. You want to make sure your collateral documents are correctly drafted. In case your note buyer needs to foreclose, the deed of trust is drafted properly to where they can properly do it, right? So it's get familiar with these three documents. I did want to bring up the contract for deed. Some investors sell their property on a contract for deed, and what that pretty much, when you compare a deed of trust or a mortgage versus a contract for deed, the contract for deed, the investor still keeps the deed, right? And the buyer makes payments to the investor. And after the buyer pays off the investor will give the buyer the deed. So the investor holds the deed until they pay them off, really. These aren't favorable by note buyers. They ask any note buyer, they're going to prefer a deed of trust or a mortgage. Now, you'll find note buyers that may buy a contract for deed. You may need to sell the note or the debt at a higher yield than 20%. And it's just good practice. Get familiar with deeds of trust and mortgages. Don't sell your property on a contract for deed. All right. So I did want to bring that up. Use a deed of trust or a mortgage. Do not use a contract for deed. Your note buyer is going to love a deed of trust or a mortgage versus a contract for deed. Okay. So get familiar with these items. Collect the rest of the down payment, right? So remember how I said, well, if you saw in my Craigslist ad, I actually am not charging the buyer any closing costs. You can, like I said, I won't get to the exact logistics and details on how to structure it exactly. This is just to create a roadmap in your mind. But just collect the remaining down payment at closing and the closing costs if you're charging your buyer, right? So that's an option for you. So close the deal, step 4. Finally, step 5 is to sell the note on PaperStack. Now, if you don't know what PaperStack is, I'm going to show you in a second, but think of PaperStack as a Facebook marketplace for mortgages, right? For mortgage notes. You can list your property or your note on there, and you'll have note buyers bid on your note, and you as the note holder, the note originator, you can decide who you want to sell to, right? This is amazing. PaperStack has made this so accessible for us note creators and also the note buyers, right? They're the middleman, but they're amazing. So let me just show you real quick. You pretty much just create a profile on PaperStack. You go to paperstack.com, you create a profile, and then you go to my listings, and then you create a listing, and then here you'll just put the details of your note, right? So you'll be in first in position, you'll put the address, you put city, state, you create it, and then after you create the listing, you will now need to put in like the loan amount, the interest rate, all that good stuff. So this is how you use Papers. It's super user friendly. Like they make it so easy for us note creators to sell notes, like super easy. So this is step 5, is to create the note. Or I'm sorry, not to create the note, but to list the note on PaperStack, entertain offers from note buyers, accept the best offer, and cash out. So just real quick, the way PaperStack does it is, once you accept a buyer or an offer from a note buyer, they'll kind of just go through it's like a step-by-step process. It's like a checklist. Okay, so the note buyer does something, then you do something, check, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. And at the very end, what the note buyer does is they wire the money into PaperStack's escrow account. And then as you go through the process, you complete the steps, you get the wire. So you get a wire for that note purchase price that you agreed to into your account after the deal is done. So that's it. That is it as far as the roadmap. Now, closing thoughts. Again, I want to emphasize, when you create a note, when you're selling your property on terms, always structure your note with the note buyer in mind. All right, that's important. I want to emphasize that a lot. Just make sure, okay? Just make sure, because if you do it incorrectly, if you don't price the property correctly up front, because you intend to sell the note at a 20% yield. You may lose money or you may not make as much. So keep that in mind. I hope that this owner financing roadmap has opened your eyes a little bit, has given you kind of a direction. But you can either, cash flow or cash out with this strategy. It's amazing, right? You can flip it, get capital, or you can just build a note or a portfolio of notes. So that's the power of owner financing. Uh, yeah. I mean, I hope you guys enjoy this. So as I promised, I'm going to show you a real life example of a deal that I did earlier in the year. I'm going to show you real numbers. So let's take a look. Alrighty. Whoops, this is not it. 1 second. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So here is a commitment for a property that I purchased. I just want to show you guys the price. All right, so the purchase price was, so I bought this. We went into the contract like in October. It didn't close until um, about a month later. So it was, oh no, yeah, so it was that. This was issued on the 25th. So this deal closed on the 13th or 12th of November. Anyway, policy amount. So this is pretty much the amount that I paid for the property. $4,000 was the purchase price. With closing costs and everything, there was about, because I offered to pay for the closing costs, it was like $1,500. So I'm technically all in $5,500, or was all in $5,500 for this property, right? It's a nice, it was a nice half acre or so outside of Houston. Okay, so if you notice the date, the end of October there, here's the purchase agreement. So I sold this property, if you notice here, for this amount, right? So it's 19.9. I collected 1,000 down, creates an $18,900 note. So I'm showing you guys the power of this, and this, what I just preached to you into practice. There you go. This is the top of the promissory note, first page. So the loan amount is 18.9. This is the rate that I charge. Okay. So now I'm going to show you here we go, what it sold for. Here we go. So I sold this loan on Paper Stacked. I had listed it for, let's see if it shows you. Yes, 16. You can kind of see it here. And then I got an offer at 14. I just took it. So after closing costs and all, I walked away with 14.2. If you see that right here, there we go. 14,200. And remember, I paid 5,500 for this property, right? 5,500. So it's $4,000 price plus $1,500 in closing costs, 5,500. If you see the date here, the closing date was February 5th. February 5th. You see that? And I purchased it. The commitment came out on the 25th of October. It closed, so let's just say November, beginning of November. So November, so December, January, February, 90 days. 90 days. in 90 days to make $8,700 net profit. Net profit. That is 150. Turn that into percent. Nope. Let's do that again. 158% return on your money in 90 days. Okay. Keep in mind the note buyer is going to make a 20% yield on his money over the year, but I was able to do 158% return on my money within 90 days. Okay, so this is an example of how powerful this can be. We don't have to just stick to selling our properties immediately for cash. I mean, we can, that's great, but not offering owner financing to your buyers is kind of limiting your buyer's pool. So, owner financing doesn't have to be your whole own strategy, but this is an amazing tool to have in your tool belt. So this is what I want to teach and what I want to show you guys, right? And show you the power in doing this, yeah. So that is it for our presentation today. I'm going to include my email in the description as well, along with all these useful links. If you have any questions, email me. I'd be happy to answer any questions, any concerns you may have. It was a pleasure, you guys, and good luck and make some money.